All right, we're live. Welcome everyone to Table Talk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm your host, the Bad Luck Gamer, with my co-host Glue Boy. Oh,
Hello.
I flipped my camera so it'd be better center because I'm not using green screen today.
I noticed no green screen. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a little inconvenient right now for the baby.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So it's on temporary. It's temporarily down, and we were a little bit late, mostly because we were just talking about Monster Hunter.
I've seen the light. I've seen it because I know I say that explicitly, and I plan to say that because I have disparaged Monster Hunter on this channel many a time. I've always been nice about it, but I have very strongly had the stance of these games not for me. Then I played Wilds, and I realized this game was for me, deeply for me. And now I also own Generations Ultimate and Rise. I've still not done a lot into Generations Ultimate because it's like, oh, this is the style of Monster Hunter I didn't like, but I feel like I can learn it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess to start things off with, just for in case anyone was watching this post effect and still for some reason hasn't heard this information, because it was even mentioned on No Nat's video where my channel got like shouted out. I have a baby, and so things have been really slow lately, and again, I mentioned it with the green screen. So as things currently stand, Table Talk will be resuming, and we're gonna have a live stream game soon, which I'll talk about here in a bit. Videos are still kind of up in the air because I have to watch our child for, a good portion of the day, and I'm gonna get like maybe 6 hours to do everything, like work, play games, all that kind of stuff, because I'm gonna be watching the baby from like 10 o'clock at night to no slug, I'm not showing the baby. 10 o'clock at night to 4 in the afternoon. So
Yeah, it takes a lot. And though you immediately said no, I did think of I was like, all you have to do, it's the thing I've been constantly saying, teach her to read with the Pathfinder core book.
right.
And raise yourself a little co-host.
Right. I mean, for sure in the future.
Oh
but
yeah, but that would just be very funny if it's like, I don't want to explain this one, take it away, and it's a child learning how to speak.
Yeah.
It's not perfect.
Toddler just excitingly telling you things about a game, probably somewhat wrong, but they got the energy, they got the vibe.
Using words they definitely are mispronouncing and don't know what it means, because
Yeah.
it's like big fantasy words.
So, and things are also no baby exploitation. Gonna teach you about sever space. So things have been a little chaotic, and Belle's a very colicky baby, so it's just really hard for her to sleep. And she only likes to be, I mean, it's a very normal baby thing, but she only likes to sleep when you're holding her, which is difficult when you're another biological being that also needs to sleep, because you're not supposed to sleep while holding your baby or anything. And while some parents co-sleep, like there's some dangers that come with co-sleep, so it's just something that like we're going to have to figure out as time goes on.
Yeah, it's a gradual process for a lot of this.
Yeah. So videos will resume whenever I can do so in a way that isn't going to cost me my sanity. Plain and simple. But while we're having everyone file in here, because we do have some interesting stuff to say today, including a pretty big announcement for our live play stuff kind of moving forward. We'll have a little bit of a chat here. So So what's been going on with you, Alex? How have you been in the 3+ months that it's been since we streamed last?
Well, I as I said, got into Monster Hunter. It is crazy that I guess my channel exploded a little bit. So, because we both got ourselves some shoutouts from bigger people in the space.
True.
And it was very cool seeing the No Nats one. It was very fun because the bit I was immediately like, yes, good, is the catching in on the parts I think I've always been exalting about your vids. One of them is just like, I hate fucking fancy editing shit. Just get to the point, talk to me.
Right.
Like, I just want to know the information. And it's better.
It was an interesting. I didn't necessarily agree with all of his takes, but like, I think it brought up an interesting conversation of, are you doing videos for the algorithm or are you doing videos for your audience?
Yeah, and I'm always a believer of doing videos for your audience. And for me, that means myself. I make a video on a topic I find interesting, because if I don't, the video is going to be dog shit, because I'm not going to care. But like, I like that point he made of like, these are methods you do it. And he's just, I think he made some good criticism, not even criticism, just good like points showing off like why people like your stuff. And like, it's always the bit too of criticism. There's an art to learning how to even take it. You got to learn how to like politely nod and then toss that information right out the window.
Right.
Some criticism you get doesn't apply, or you're not participating for a good reason. It's a reason you didn't do the way they suggest.
Yeah, I for some reason on the Twitch side of things, the video's buffering crazy for me as well.
Oh no.
Though Dead Phoenix says apparently it's fine.
It looks
I know
fine
YouTube
for me
is
too.
buttery smooth though, so I don't know. I don't know what's the difference between the two at the moment.
Yeah, it at least I haven't noticed any issues with the Twitch stream.
I haven't
So if
seen
you're
it
just having
hiccup in
problems,
a
go
lot,
to YouTube.
so I don't know.
But yeah, and like right now, it's fun. I am currently in good old editing crunch mode of another big overview video. It's been a long time. I miss these. Man, are they like effort. But Mage the Ascension is such a fun world, fun universe, fun system. Like, it's just so fun to talk about, because Mage the Ascension is one of those things where you kind of dig slightly and there's like 10 layers of more bullshit hiding underneath. So it's very fun. And it hits even harder the fact that I think we, as like on one of our off seasons, if we played Mage the Ascension, I'd be pretty into it. I think we could do some very fun stuff with it.
Yeah, I mean, I own, I think it's like 3rd edition or something, Mage the Ascension.
I know you've talked about it like a long time ago. So I remember it was like that and Scion. Or,
Yeah.
One of them might have been the Chronicles of Darkness. There's I forget what the Chronicle name for mages is.
I don't remember. I have the book somewhere.
Yeah.
But I was a big White Wolf fan back in the day.
They got fun stuff. Like I think even if their games aren't always perfect, like I think I've heard Demon the Fallen is just kind of weird and like not great. The same with the Chronicles stuff. And a couple are good, some don't. The work they put into those games is like a sign of the times, where they're just publishing stuff that they want to make. Like, I respect it. That's my favorite thing in art.
Yeah, Mage the Awakening. That's the one. That's the one.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have zero clue. The only one I know is I know Vampire the Masquerade and Vampire the Requiem. Requiem is a lot more actiony, like based on like the first and second version of Vampire the Masquerade, and it also only has like 5 bloodlines.
Yeah.
So it's like it is different in that aspect. I just know they went farther in like action RPG kind of D&D esque.
But yeah, I don't know. It's been a pretty quiet beginning of the year, besides like the No Nat call out. And to be fair, that was like, it was nice. It wasn't like massive, but you know, it helped. And it didn't really help that I was not making videos for people to kind of like to get hooked on. But yeah, for both of us, it's been a pretty quiet first part of the year. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. This is a massive year for TTRPGs, though. Like,
Oh yeah,
in general.
we've been waiting like for a while for for hit to hit 2025.
Yeah. And it's an interesting year, so I think we can already just kind of hop into things. I'm not expecting
yeah.
too many more people to hop into the stream today. First stream in a while. A lot of people are just not going to be on the rhythm yet. Though there's more of you here than I was expecting, so that's nice. But let's talk about the fall of D&D. So,
Yeah.
this is not just like my own opinion on things. Hey, thanks Geek Ledger for the follow. We appreciate you. But Alex, do you know at all what I might be referring to?
The only thing I can think of is the fact every time I see D&D stuff or like that with new content with D&D, it's a lot of people saying to just keep playing 5th edition instead of whatever new shit they're making.
Kind of. So a lot of the fall of D&D is one, there's been this very progressive process of D&D content creators kind of just like slowly moving away from D&D or really phoning it in when it comes to like, it's very obvious they're playing like Pathfinder or some other kind of game, but they're making D&D content because that's their job. XP to level 3 is a really big indicator of this, even though I know only recently he did like a one shot with all of his friends. I know he's been playing Pathfinder before then. He mentioned it before in some of his prior videos.
It seemed like that Pathfinder video, it was nice to get a video where it's like it seemed like a good representation of the game. When we've had on here, we've talked about a lot of videos where it's like hamming up certain aspects to kind of dissuade people. It looked like the comment section was very positive towards like, Pathfinder looks interesting, or Pathfinder players being like, yeah, the game's good, keep playing.
And this year specifically as well, a lot of content creators that were big D&D heads are kind of just doomsaying D&D themselves, which has been wild to see. D&D 2025 or 2024, whatever it was called, did not do well. And in addition to this, very recently we discovered that D&D has essentially gotten rid of like 90% of their team working on the Vigil or the Sigil VTT that they were including with like D&D Beyond and stuff like that.
I am genuinely surprised with the way every other project they've been doing has gone, that they all have been fired and the VTT has been canceled.
Yeah, it's wild. And it's like this, like in 2023, that was like their thing that they were talking about. Like, here's the big thing coming out in 2024, or that we're working on in 2024. I like that D&D, aka the game of Theseus. That's hilarious. That's a really good way of talking about D&D.
It really is.
But yeah, so D&D has been just shitting the bed. I mean, they've been shitting the bed for years, but like more so because D&D 2024 really just was kind of just like a, hey, here's an errata book. We kind of changed things a bit. Developers of the game are coming out and saying, you know, of all the terrible things that have been happening with D&D.
That I haven't even heard of.
Yeah, Mike Merle's had like a, because he's no longer on the D&D team. He hasn't been on the D&D team for a while now, but he had like an interview somewhat recently talking about like how D&D is just not cool anymore because of a lot of the decisions that were being made. And some other people, not some of the big names, but some other people have been kind of making some comments about it as well. Oh yeah, the WotC DMCA of Stardew mod. That's super hilarious.
Oh my god, I didn't know about that either.
Yeah, no, there was a Baldur's Gate 3 mod for Stardew Valley where you got to romance essentially the Baldur's Gate 3 characters, and WotC like DMCA'd it. It's hilarious.
That's really sad.
Um, and then we also have Critical Role finishing campaign 3 and are now moving to Daggerheart for their future campaign.
Oh
So
yeah, and there's a Geek and Sundry Pathfinder game too, right?
yeah, there is. Matt Mercer's playing in it too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like this is what we've talked about so many times with D&D 2024 is like, man, with some of the changes they're doing, this is not surprising because that was my big issue looking at everything they were dropping. It was really like, why would I buy this book when I can keep playing the game that works? And because it's modified for most people to a point where it's barely like Wizard of the Coast D&D. So like, why would you buy D&D 2024, especially when a lot of the changes look to take away what casual people like find fun? It's like we can look at stuff and be like, yeah, this rogue aspect overpowered, this paladin thing overpowered. Casuals are going to look at that and be like, oh, that was like my favorite thing. Damn. Like why well, can we just do the old version? So I don't understand the thought process. Well, I do. It's if we make a new edition, we'll lose it's like sales. So let's make a new edition that isn't an edition but feels like shitty errata.
Right, which is going to lose them sales anyway because they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And like also apparently this is a rumor, so I'll state first and foremost a rumor. A D&D content creator, what was his name? He's the guy who does the silly voices for like his various personas. Like the really exaggerated silly voices.
I could see I could
Probably name like
through
5
D&D.
people who does that, yeah.
Yeah.
But he was saying that hello, Hoyle Lapa. How you doing? But he was saying that he heard from some people who work for D&D at the moment that the reason why Sigil got shit canned the way it did, DM Layer, yes, DM Layer, there you go. See, someone got it.
I know that name.
Hoy is enough, good. I'll try to keep that in mind. But he was saying that it got shit canned because some executives didn't realize that when they were pitching it originally, it wasn't going to be a video game. And so when it was discovered that it wasn't a video game, but a VTT, like digital aid, essentially, they cut a lot of the funding.
I'm not surprised in the slightest of any of that, if that is true. But man, you know, they are pulling some pretty heavy punches with it because it's trying to be like Unreal Engine 5 and shit, which I know we mentioned back then was like, this is going to be cool for people who can actually run it on their PC. Like that's still, I think, the flaw with this VTT, but also like if it drops and is good, that's a good product. Yeah, it's a cool looking VTT.
Yeah, and that's if that is the reason. Again, this is all hearsay. This is not even third person information. This is like fifth person information here. If that is, that's hilarious, and that just shows that like D&D is not in for a good time in the coming years.
Meanwhile, they like canceled all of the video game projects they were talking about and working on after Baldur's Gate 3.
Yep.
It's like, what the fuck are they doing? They're like, well, we don't want to fund this because it's not a video game. Cancel all the video games. Like, what? Oh, that's why they were upset. They couldn't cancel it.
Right. It's pretty bad. And the thing is, like, it seems like D&D has kind of just finally shifted to the phase of, all right, let's wring this dry and hang it up kind of thing, where they're just going to try to squeeze every penny they can out of people and then cut funding pretty much as possible to just to cut losses as much as possible.
Yeah, because you're still going to get like the slow trickle of people paying for like the main books that are out, any royalties being paid out for using the license. There's a lot of those. I would not be surprised if we have like the slow eventual decline of anything releasing for D&D, just making all that money because they've talked about monetization problems with just tabletop.
Yeah.
And like we're just gonna see the effect of what's gonna happen when the D&D players are kind of just deprived of anything new, even the hint that new things could come. I still think there's gonna be just like the large pocket of people that'll still play 5th edition, but I think there's gonna be like more people hop into other games. It would be fun if a bunch of ex-D&D 5e devs jumped and made a game that kind of had the bones of 5e but better. If they're like, this game's abandoned, let's make our own spiritual successor.
Yeah, and that actually kind of leads to this next part I want to talk about when it comes to D&D, like the fall of D&D, which is the billions of Kickstarters, like some of the really big name Kickstarters that were like, here's D&D but better, like Draw Steel and like Roll20, I think, or DC20. I think it was DC20. Can't remember.
Yeah, DC20.
Who are coming out with their Kickstarters, like are releasing this year. And we also have Daggerheart coming out, which is going to be the, if you like Critical Role and the kind of cult of personality that they've garnered around the D&D community, this is going to be your game. Many of the races have the same names as they do in D. It's very much like a very D&D flavored game. And then we also have the Cosmere RPG coming out this summer, which is super hype. I love the systems behind it. I don't think it's going to be super relevant in the grand scheme of what's happening with D&D, though. I've come to determine that there's just the D&D experience, and people are going to want the D&D experience no matter its form. There's also the tariff situation that's also potentially a problem.
That's gonna hit any like hobby nerd stuff, because like a lot of every printer for plastic printer like models, they're all in China.
Yeah.
Like that was a big thing with Games Workshop. There was that's where they've sourced everything, and then it's also being sold out of the UK. So yikes.
Yeah, so we might have some issues around that kind of stuff. No one really knows. I've been keeping an ear to the Cosmere team. They don't know what's going to happen. They're still on course as far as they're aware. But yeah, so we have a lot of games that are going to be tapping the vein of D&D in a way that Hasbro just can't right now.
I'll be honest too, like there are elements of that classical like a D&D campaign that I do kind of like want to do it. Like there's just something about like what you think of when you think of a D&D campaign is like that sprawling like constant travel, going town to town, adventuring, being heroes. I'm like, man, I love our games, but if we did one of those, that'd be really fun. Because like it's just kind of booting up a video game you're used to, booting up a show that makes you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, there's enjoyment in that. Like the fantasy of it. So I understand that appeal. A lot of games try to not be D&D by being like, we're different, this is how we do things. And I don't know, it's just that the classical adventurer vibe is a real fun one still.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's, I think, a really good reason why that style of tabletop has been around forever, you know? I think it really depends on your GM and their goals and how the players want to interact with the game as well.
For sure.
And like, since Cosmere has been coming out, I've really been coming to terms with the idea that, like, honestly, for me personally, at the very least, I am not a person who enjoys tactical TTRPG elements necessarily. Like, I do and I don't. I like it because, like, Pathfinder 2nd Edition, for instance, super fun, very deep, complex game. Making your build is really, really fun. But the funnest TTRPG experiences I've ever had, took place in games that we just barely used maps, if not at all, you know? And that was due to the narrative, and that was due to, like, how the game was kind of built around their rule sets and kind of like the idea behind it. And like looking into the Cosmere stuff, while Cosmere still has some grid tactical based things, it takes a lot more of that and puts it into less mechanically intensive mechanics, as it were, you know.
Yeah, it leans really heavily into still narrative stuff. I like the mix, because my kind of fun of these games is I love Pathfinder's tactical style, like combat and play style, and then the idea that, oh, I can play a good game on top of like role playing and telling a story with my friends. Hell yeah. Like, that's what I want. I enjoy Pathfinder in a similar route that I enjoy CRPGs. Like, mechanically satisfying, and I want the story to be good too. And sometimes you also want a game that can lean into the story with the rules. That hits hard too.
Yeah. And I feel like Cosmere is definitely going to hit some of that, but that's going to be a divide in TTRPG players in general. I think that a lot of people like the D&D style of like tactical combat, and even though, you know, it's D&D, but, you know, bear with me, it's designed around tactical combat, and like the idea of the adventurers and just playing any kind of silly guy to do like whatever kind of thing you want to do, because that's kind of like what a lot of things are based on. I mean, Legends of Adventures has been rapidly increasing in sub count, mostly because of their shorts, which are hilarious.
They do really good work on their TikTok and Shorts game. I started watching them and then stuck around because it's just improv comedy for a few hours and no D&D combat, so I like it.
Yep. So for me personally, I want to move in a direction that I feel is the best for me personally, and as well for like the kind of community I would like to grow. And that's definitely going to involve games that are more narratively crunchy, to say the least. Like Pathfinder 2nd Edition, still a good game. I'm still going to make content on it, of course. I still like the game a lot. It's still technically my favorite game. But there's just elements of Pathfinder that don't support the things I would like to have more support for in a TTRPG. It does everything else correctly, but there's just some elements that just it doesn't do that some other games might be able to do. Like Cosmere's, I love its narrative reward system. I actually really like the plot die and how that's going to work in a game. And I like how Cosmere has been taking an effort to like just allow players to be good at the things they want to be good at, rather than like giving you a marginally better chance of rolling at things you like to be good at.
I deeply adore the plot dice mechanic, and any mechanic like that I really, really like. Cosmere is the second best version of it I've encountered. And I like the plot dice still, though, because unlike my actual favorite, I feel like the plot dice just can be slotted into some games really easily. With like adjusting to the math, of course, because that's always going to be the big thing. But apparently that's just feedback they got constantly, was that like people took from playtests, be like, hey, we stole the plot dice and added it to Pathfinder and it rules. And they're like, oh, I guess we just made like a little bit of homebrew. Like, I love that. I like that it's just that simple of a concept.
Yeah, it's really easy to just be like, hey, I have a specialty in this particular thing. It's like, cool. The DM's like, all right, cool. You just know the thing. No need to make a check or anything like that. It makes sense. Your character does this thing, you know, for a living or whatever. And so, like, there's no need to have a rule, and it's just okay to let characters be good at things. And what I'm talking about when it comes to narrative crunch, I know Oyman just asked here. So a narrative crunch is a game that uses narrative elements, but in a much stronger framework that allows you to tell the story, but with rules specifically around it that don't necessarily need arbitration to like determine how it works, more or less. So a really good example of this is like the narrative reward system in Cosme RPG. All you have to do is just hit 3 goals towards whatever your actual goal is, and then you earn a reward typically based on your goal. Like if your goal in the game was to earn a shard blade, for instance, then your character is rewarded mechanically for doing story elements like challenging shard blade holders for their blade, getting the notoriety of like one of the princes of Alethkar, for instance. Like each one of these would check off one of those boxes, and then when you finish it out, you've earned a shard blade in a way that makes sense narratively speaking, but it provides a framework that allows the GM to give the player something tangible to like pursue, rather than like a game system that's like, hey, if you want to try to go for this, you're gonna have to try to schmooze some people, and you're gonna have to try to like make an image for yourself. And it's very vague, and it's something that doesn't really like, okay, but am I progressing, GM? Am I? Now with the narrative goal system, you can have like, okay, this should be worth it, right? And the GM's like, yeah, you definitely work towards it. Here's a check mark off. And it can definitely get a lot deeper than that. And that kind of was going to lead to the big announcement I was alluding to earlier, which is our Tuesday game. For the time being, this is not necessarily a permanent thing, but our Tuesday game moving forward, we're going to be working on a game that I have designed called the 333. The 333 is it's a occult, how to put it, because there's a lot of different ways it can go. It's an occult investigative game that kind of the themes are, it's Victorian steampunk but high modern, so it has the visual design, gothic style, gentlemanly or ladylike clothing, kind of stuff like that. Cypher system is a narrative based system. It's not super crunchy for a narrative system though, but it's high modern, so there's technology, there's the internet, there's all this kind of stuff like that. The players are playing these ascended characters who kind of have taken a step towards becoming something more than mortal. And it has a lot of occult vibes. It has a lot of all kinds of stuff like that. But more importantly than that, it's a game that is incredibly narratively crunchy. So a lot of, like, for instance, I just play tested the other day beforehand the combat system. So it's theater of the mind combat, but it's crunchy theater of the mind combat, if you can imagine such a thing.
Best way I can picture it, because I just haven't engaged with your combat at all, of the stuff I've interacted with it yet. I imagine it's like distances don't matter super much. Because that's what hits me for battle maps, is when I need to be very particular about movement speed and enemy placement.
Yeah, you'll definitely see, but we just played it the other day with I played it with Booter and Slug, and it was a good time. I actually really enjoyed it. The game feels really good. Guns are super powerful. It's really easy to just instant kill at least basic types of enemies with a gun, which
good. I plan to use one.
And it's a game that makes it feel like you're actually telling the combat scene rather than like making individual moves and individual turns that feel very piecemeal, I should say. Like, as your turn is going on, a lot of stuff is happening. So it's something that I think is hard to properly describe, but on Tuesdays we're going to be playing the 333 for the time being. We have Plague Watch still in the works for people who care about Plague Watch. But with a baby, my soon to be wife will be, it'll be hard to play with both of us together because we have a baby we have to take care of. So for at least a little while, we want to see like how our schedule is going to work. She's going back to work starting tomorrow, and so yeah, it's just we don't know. And I would hate to have paid like $200 for a character art and then not use it for a majority of the Plague Watch campaign.
Yeah, and I'd be very sad because I'm also just attached to the character I made. I think it's gonna be a very fun one.
Yeah. So this is a really good opportunity for me to work on this game that this game I am in no doubt is probably going to be the best game that I can run / like perform in. This is a game that is very much playing towards my strengths as a GM. And as well, the game's mechanics feel really, really good, actually. I've actually been surprised how little, like, toe stubbing I've been doing through this design process. And the thing is I've always been the best at designing things while, like, on the spot, running it as a GM. So it makes sense for me to essentially design the game as we're playing it. And the live plays will give you the ability to see the 333 in practice, see what we're doing, and then we'll probably have a Patreon soon where you can get the beta rules as they're being updated, just for $5 a month. Just you get all the rules for the game. You can wait a few months if you want, but you get them as they're being updated as we're playing the 333. And this is a game that has a lot of themes I really like. I think it's going to be an incredibly fun time. And honestly, like, if this works out appropriately, this is going to be the game. Like, this is going to be the best game I could ever run in design and in practice. So
yeah, it's going to be because like in everything I've seen too, I trust like making mechanical systems that feel good, run good. Even better if like y'all literally did it. I was wondering what you guys were doing in that channel. Playtest and combat. If it feels that good, hell yeah. Literally the only hurdle I can foresee is the style of like an improv like game is the moment you have to put it in the hands in material that is usable by other people. Because trust me, I also find that really difficult, is perfectly getting it all laid out so like someone can pick up the rules and start playing that like isn't you. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, to be sure.
I just also see the PDF being long from what I know that's in the game and the stuff you can do. I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be a lot. I'm excited, very excited.
Yeah, well, to be fair, it's like it's a sliding scale game, and that's also one of the things I really like about this is, as a sliding scale game, the game is as deep as you want it to be. The game can form itself to the players. There's a lot of opt-in systems where a player doesn't have to necessarily interact with it, and many of the systems that kind of are more based around like the self-discovery, like for instance, this game has event decks, and there's a grand event deck, which is like what's happening in the world or at least in your locale at any given time. But there's also players have an individual event deck that they're building for their own character stories that resolve really fast, and you can, in no short order, like you can deck build your event deck, so your character are getting the types of interactions you want during those times. And then there's mission steps or mission phases where everyone is getting together to do a thing for some specific purpose. And this deck has a lot of GM aids, and this deck has a lot of ways that a GM can take it or leave as much as they want of the system. But the base framework, the skeleton of the game, is going to be substantial enough where even if you don't take a lot of the aids that the system gives, which to be fair, many of the aids are they just kind of offload a lot of the things GMs normally do. But the base framework will allow the GM to run a very interesting narratively based game. And Uh, Crunchy Theater of the Mind was something that like was an epiphany moment to me, and I think many people will like how it works because it accounts for so many things and it can be scaled up. Like the way the combat system generally works, you can add essentially new, like if a player leaves like a determined area, for instance, like say you're fighting in a warehouse, your character busts through a wall outside of the warehouse. The game accounts for that and can create a zone for you without needing to like redesign a map, for instance. Or if if your players are suddenly shot at by a sniper or something like that, the game can account for that in the distance without needing to make a grid around it or having a grid pre-made that players can be like, hey, this spot looks a little weird. And it can be scaled where you could do even military army-based combat with this system without really too much altering of how the game mechanics work. We're working with essentially different types of character sheets, which, you know, again, is something that's very opt-in. So if your players want to eventually like form a small army or have small like groups of trained individuals for squads and stuff like that, that fits into the game very neatly and very nicely to tell those kind of stories. So, also, big things. It's an occult mysticism-based game. Your character gets to look into some weird systems, find ways to get towards divinity and all kinds of stuff like that. The 333 is, I feel like we're sitting on a gold mine with it. Like, I'm going to be honest. I'm a very practical person, and I'm not very, like, I don't like to embellish too much. That's just how it makes me feel. So.
Yeah, I'm looking, like, really forward to it.
I mean, like, you should probably more than most, Alex, because this is taking essentially what I was doing with Anima, but doing it in a game better designed to run it.
That's all I want, man. I just want Anima, but, like, the feeling of Anima.
Yeah, I think you'll definitely feel it. It'll be very interesting. And there'll be lots of fun things along the way. We have some interesting conversations going on here.
I will, yeah, because first and foremost, hey James.
Yeah, hey James, how you doing?
But I will say, you don't need to buy 3 books for the Cosmere RPG, and there is a traditional core book. Like, it's in beta right now, but they're gonna drop the traditional core book, and then the other books for Stormlight is like a world guide, and then the next one I think is just the adventure book. Like, those are the 3 that are coming out. So like you really only need one of those, and the world guide's just gonna help and be fun if you're a fan of Roshar. Like, I'll be honest. Which, oh yeah, that is a thing I also did. I finished every Brandon Sanderson book, every Cosmere book.
Oh, yeah.
Damn, the series goes hard. Like, there are a lot of really good stuff. The secret projects are very fun.
I've been dragging myself through Elantris. It's a little bit of a rough one.
It's hard, man. I only like got more hooked into it like halfway through. It took a bit, or after like part 1, at least it started to pick up. But like, it's still a book where you're like, man, this is so early. There's a lot of flaws in it. I feel a little bit like that with the first Mistborn trilogy. It had its moments where I'm like, do I want to keep going? Yes, I do. And like book 2, it got a little better. Book 3 is the best of the 3. It's just a push, because if you do that, you'll get to peak, which is Mistborn era 2. And I need you to experience the things I experienced.
Yeah. At some point, I've been reading an interesting manhwa, or web novel rather, called The Lord of the Mysteries. It is so fascinating because it is probably the best like occult investigative story I've ever read up until this point. Like, the characters, there's reason behind the rituals. The characters do all kinds of occulty things, and it gets very mind-breaky at some point later in the story, which is super cool, and is actually one of the inspirations for the 333. Because the 333 as well just has a point in time where the game just changes and you're just not playing the same kind of game that you were originally playing, and it gets very like conceptual. But I plan on having rules to structure it. But if you want to have like multi-dimensional mind bending elements in your TTRPG that are very occultly linked, then yeah, 333 is definitely going to be the game for sure. But yeah, for the Cosmere RPG, you just need the core book. And one of the best parts about the Cosmere RPG, I think a thing that a lot of people are really neglecting when it comes to what makes the Cosmere RPG good, heroic paths are literally just people. Like, the heroic paths are just like, you were a soldier, you were a scholar, all this kind of stuff. That can be done in any kind of setting. And the Radiant paths are more setting aligned, but even then, not even necessarily mechanically. Like, your character swearing the oath or whatever, that can be just reskinned for any high fantasy setting if you really wanted to. Your spren are just sprites, spirits, familiars, something like that, you know? Some kind of contract you make with essentially like a force of nature or a fragment of God, anyway.
Yeah, you could easily like take the stuff, even if it's still like, oh yeah, I'm a Knight Radiant. You can still, I feel, pull it out and reflavor it if you want to play like a traditional, I guess, Faerun style fantasy world. Like, I would not be surprised if down the line they did make like a system agnostic version of it, where it's like, here's just the rules that you need, and you can like play in whatever world you want, non-Cosmere stuff. Like, go wild.
Well, yeah, I mean, essentially, again, you kind of can already do that with just the heroic paths. Like, they're not, some of them have like subclasses like Artifabrian, for instance. But Artifabrian, again, can just be converted into Artificer if you really want to. So,
oh yeah, 100%. Like, you can go through it and reflavor it. It's I do think it'd be fun, because I think it's the one possible flaw that we've both kind of keyed into on the Cosmere RPG is like, man, it's gonna feel really tied in that you have to do a Cosmere game, like you have to do it in those worlds, when no, you don't have to. You can do it however you want.
Yeah,
it's just gonna be, well, a little weirder if you're like Mistborn, because, you know, there's certain, you have to play it in a specific time period if you want to play with Mistborn Era 2 stuff.
Well,
like,
yeah,
because it requires like smelting advanced.
True. And it has guns. Like, there's a gunner heroic path. So
you gotta. It's like the coolest shit. I mean, the coolest character in Mistborn is a flying gunslinger. He rules.
So yeah, it's something that I think, like, it's one of those things that actually, like, I discovered when we were doing our combat playtest for the 333 the other day. Sometimes it's the vibe of a thing, or like its presentation, that really can limit how people perceive a particular thing. So in Cosmere RPG, a lot of people are just gonna be limited by the fact that it's based on an already made book in series and something like that. So like, people's initial impression is very much going to be like, okay, so this is a fan game for a series, you know. That's just what's going to happen. It doesn't matter how the game is designed. People are just going to come across it because that's the vibe of a game based on a product. The thing is, though, D&D also has this, but people just ignore it because most people, even like the people designing the game, don't really adhere too much about the actual lore, or don't like do any proper world building to give characters context for the setting that they're in, unless you are buying like all the individual books, or unless you were already a fan of the D&D setting of Faerun. Like,
it really feels like a situation where the perspective is built off of like, first, which came first, the book or the game. But I also think it's just, that's what happens when you make a game system that's tied into the world it exists in, huh? because like D&D is really like none of this is baked into Faerun shit except for like what gods are named. But like there's nothing else. And then you have a game that's super tied into the world where it's throwing around some jargon at you and you're like, whoa, I have to learn what a fabrial is? No thank you. I'm gonna go to my nondescript magic tech artificer. Like,
Yeah,
like
right.
that kind of thing. That is probably the problem.
Exactly. Because we also play Fabula Ultima. And Fabula Ultima is a really fun game. I really like it, but it's very kind of rules lighty. It's not a particularly dense game. And there's this system called Fabula Points, where you can spend a Fabula Point to edit a scene. And my players really kind of struggled with using Fabula Points because they don't know the context or like the way it can be used. And sure, the more we play the game, the better players are getting about spending Fabula Points to like adjust the setting or to do what it's designed to do in the game. But because it's so like free ranged, or because it's so like vague, players just struggled to use it. When we were playtesting my combat system the other day, I have a narrative point system, which narrative points are used for a lot of other kinds of things. But narrative points can be used to alter a scene. But the zone you're in has a theme, and it also tells you how many narrative points you can spend at any one time to like essentially generate a thing in the setting. And what happened immediately was the players saw that little like framework, that little like guideline, and they instantly used it without prompting. They're like, hey, one of the players, so we had a combat scenario essentially in a abandoned warehouse. And the theme was rusty junk. And they could spend up to 3 narrative points, which means like one creates like junk cover. You can get behind cover so you don't get shot, very typically used. And another one is like when you hit 2 points or 3 points, they could generate like there's a car currently hanging from the roof that's like held up only by a rusty chain, stuff like that, you know. And one of the players is like, hey, can they be hiding, like, can this enemy in cover just be hiding behind, like, an explosive barrel? Like a barrel full of petrol or something like that? And unprompted, it was very interesting. And we even made a way where it's like, all right, cool. The enemy is going to make, like, an awareness test on this. And if they succeed, they wouldn't have hidden behind an explosive barrel. But if they fail, then they're hiding behind an explosive barrel. And they failed, and then the player shot it, and then the guy got blown up. And the thing is, like, it's almost exactly like how Fabula Ultima is generally supposed to work, but it was so much easier for the players to understand the idea when it's just presented in a way that's more digestible.
A lot of times it is just a presentation thing. Like, a presentation thing, and the thing I always want is solid examples of what it can be. Because sometimes the fabulous stuff, it's like, here are your options, and then the one option that's like anything.
Right.
When rather, I like it to be the way I can think of it is a little bit like Mage the Ascension, because it's the first thing I'm working on.
Right.
How the pips in that game for each dot you get in your power is like, you're not getting a power, you're getting a type of ability. It's like, okay, you can harness this magic circle to this extent. And that's what I like in any form of a narrative style, like opportunity system. You got to know the costs of like the severity you can go. Because if there's like a limit to what you have, like how crazy can I introduce like something to the scene? That's going to make better decisions, like in the moment. You can just come to it faster when you have guardrails. You need guardrails. That's the big point, the constant point.
Yeah. Yeah, and with the 333 and its design, like, it's supposed to give you some pretty strict, like, guardrails at first that eventually, as the players progress, get kind of, like, smaller and smaller and smaller because the players, what they're capable of, kind of grow beyond that point. but it introduces them through the system rather than like from the get-go, like how Fabula points kind of work. So it's something where a lot of game design is really vibes when it comes to TTRPGs, because I mean, it's a game about imagination, right? We're here to tell a story that's all in our heads, and it's something that for the most part people are playing ideas more than they're actually playing games. I mean, D&D is a great example of like, how many people do you know homebrew D&D? It's like everyone, you know? So the rules really don't matter that much when it comes to the actual practice of it. And D&D is kind of like gains this identity of being like the third party system because they're so bad at making their own game. So it's like that a lot of people are really drawn to that idea. Like this is the unlimited system. So it's a very interesting time to be in the D&D or be in the tabletop space, because there is just a lot of evolution of design coming out. Cosmere really like helps me start working on the 333. Again, Game of Theseus. Exactly, yes. Game of Theseus. And I feel like a better game is just a game that isn't a Game of Theseus, but is just designed better, but can allow you to do a lot of things and tell a lot of different kinds of stories.
Yeah, it depends what style, because I feel like there's a lot of games that really try to go for the you can do anything in our system, but like honestly, okay, it feels like a D&D, like because D&D is so prominent, but you've noticed this too. Like all of the smaller like tabletop games, especially indie games, are really more focused on like, you can tell this type of story. Like this is the story you can tell with our game. And it feels a little bit like a response to just the sandbox of D&D style design. And
Yeah.
I do some like sandbox style. I do want to be like have that ownership of what kind of thing I can run. Because if I come across a game where I'm like, oh, the rules really cool, the theme not my thing. Like, you know, it's better to be hit with just being able to do whatever you want. I always want more player DM choice.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and when designing the 333, like that's kind of one of the major things I'm working on, which is the game evolves the way you play it. So if your character wants to get into the alchemy system that's in the game, which is more like, you know, more like mysticism style alchemy rather than like just brewing potions kind of stuff.
I want to clap my hands and transmute matter.
Yeah, no, it opens a whole nother game system. So you start getting access to mechanics that are just wholly unique compared to the rest of the game. It's not a skill-based alchemy, you know, like Pathfinder 2nd Edition has skill-based alchemy, where you can play an alchemist, but what you're really just doing is just in your free time, you're making a craft skill check. In the 330...
extra potions.
Yeah, in the 333... you're playing an actual game that has mechanics for the thing that you're doing so that you can interact with it in ways that are more interesting, so that your character feels like an alchemist as you're playing it, because we're supposed to use crafting in our alchemists. Lol.
I refuse to use crafting.
Well, it's just alchemists don't really need to use crafting unless they're doing it in their downtime, which is the point of the joke.
Yeah.
But in my game, it's like, if you want to play an alchemist, mechanically, the way you play the game is going to be different. The types of things you're interacting with as a player are just going to be different. And this doesn't eat up a lot of time because the systems are either stuff that you can do on your own, like time, or there's stuff that just resolves really easily and really quickly. But it doesn't reduce a essentially character idea down to a skill check, which is what I want to do with the game in its entirety. Like, if you're playing a character with a very particular style, I feel like the game should give you systems to play in that way. So rather than a game that lets you do everything in concept or in like theory, this is the kind of game that the way you play your character is just going to be very different every time you make a new character, because you're just interacting with completely different systems. So you're going to feel like you're playing very uniquely every time you play the game, essentially.
I mean, I am right now sounding like the vibe I'm going for with this character is gunslinger. Oh my god, and his name immediately dipped. The fucking X-Man, teleport, Nightcrawler. That's it.
Nightcrawler.
I'm a gunslinging Nightcrawler is like the vibe I'm gonna go for now. Like, hell yeah. I love Nightcrawler. That is my boy.
Yeah, well, and the thing is too is like this game offers weird ways where, like, when you guys hit your third ascendancy and you go through your first evolution of your concept, like I've been telling everyone one of your evolutions as an example, because it's your power is just not going to work the way you thought it did, which is exactly the idea I want. Is this game evolves as you play.
Well, they all know what is it.
Do you want to know? I can tell you.
Sure, yeah.
Sure, this will be a good example for people who are interested. So,
yeah, explain what my power is and all that.
So Alex's character works under the concept of travel. He gets powers that let him just go places. Right now he has a power called move. It just lets him essentially short range teleport. He doesn't actually teleport or anything, he just is somewhere else. That's just how his power works. When you guys hit the third ascendancy, you gain an additional concept that evolves your power. From travel, one of your evolutions is destination.
Journey before destination?
So your power move changes where you no longer get your short range teleport. Instead, you choose a locale as like your destination. You become the embodiment of a destination, essentially. From anywhere in the world at all, you could grab a newspaper from a stand in that city. Your character,
be a dark day when I embody New Jersey.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Like, your powers get crazy. Your character will be able to change your immediate locality, the immediate zone you're in, to any location in your destination. So you could turn a battlefield that's like in a warehouse into the middle of a busy city street if you want to.
I'm gonna be the most annoying motherfucker to catch in like by anybody, really.
Yeah.
Like, finding me, like, oh, joke's on you, loser. We're somewhere else. Yeah, I'm making a criminal, by the way, so this all works.
Your door ability no longer just allows you to open doors, but now you can change the egress from any door to any door in your locale.
All right, I'm gonna be playing a fucking MC Escher painting, like.
Well, okay, but see, here's the thing, right? That's just one of your 3 possible evolutions.
Oh yeah, there's 2 others.
Each of them drastically changed the concept of travel to something that evolves it in a way. So, like, destination, while you're not teleporting around necessarily as much anymore, you're now bringing locations with you, in a sense.
So, just for how things are laid out, are evolutions the same embodiments with, like, the ascendancies, or is it a different pool?
They're a different pool, but there are some overlaps.
Okay. Because it's all I'm thinking of is, like, oh man, the character creation part of, like, the rules text could be very long. There's just a lot of things to list.
I mean, to be fair, there's already 78 base ascendancies that are going to be in the game.
Yeah.
So, and each of those ascendancies will have 3 evolutions for their first ascended. But to be fair, like, the thing with my game is some of the rules are very mechanically basic that your abilities, I mean, you've seen your ascension powers. They're like a sentence.
It keeps it like in line because it makes sense too if it's all theater of the mind. Because if it's a game that's scaling to be like, yeah, you can be busted as shit, you can become crazy, then it just makes me wonder what we're going up against.
Yeah, that's the fun part. And then it's also, there's limits. The narrative point system, the narrative point system involves the players taking complications for the sake of gaining points. So players have to constantly be suffering in order to use their powers as much as they would like. But you get to choose, essentially. And I'm going to be offering you guys devil deals the entire time we're playing the game of like, all right, hey, I can make something bad happen right now and give you some narrative points as a reward for it. It gives players a lot more onus of negative events, essentially, which I think will feel better for players. But anyway, so that's enough about the 333. Check it out. It's going to be, we're starting our first session here on Tuesday. It's going to be a little rough because like we can't use a VTT that has some of the character sheets on it already because they don't exist.
Yeah.
But a lot of the money I'm going to put into the project up front is going to be like art. And then I may just pay Slug to like develop widgets on Foundry for the game, which widgets for this game are not going to be that complicated at all. So
I hope you guys make a character sheet on a VTT that isn't dog shit.
Yeah.
Please. Like I will be the first to call out if we are going to play this game and our character sheets suck on Foundry.
Yeah.
So we are not falling down that same trap all these really cool games do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to have help designing a character sheet. So like the big part of this whole process is I'm using my friends to help develop this game as well. So but yeah, so starting Tuesday, the 333, check it out. It's gonna be a little bit before we get everything onto like a Patreon. So if you do want to see the beta rules, it's gonna be a little bit of time. It's mostly because I'm just really bad at formatting Google Docs or stuff like that people can look at. So I'm gonna have my friends help me design like a Google Doc that makes sense. Because right now I'm just writing everything on notepads. But yeah. But now that the chat seems to have leveled out a little bit, I have been seeing this idea because Starfinder 2E classes do seem to be like a step above Pathfinder 2E classes. I don't think there's a problem with that, except if you're really like hankering to do a crossover game.
That's a good point. I'm sitting here thinking of all the stuff I've read through, and like there are a lot of options for Starfinder where you're just like, oh god, oh I get to do this, and I'm picturing them tangoing with Pathfinder stuff, and it's like, man, how will that land? Like, what kind of game is that going to be?
Well, and like definitely left in a point here that I'm curious about. So you say I'm less worried about compatibility, so you're not worried about a crossover. Just that that Starfinder 2E will outclass Pathfinder. Why is that an issue?
I mean, it depends if it's going to be super crossovery.
Well, and they just said that they're not worried about compatibility. So
I mean, like if you're going to be in a game that's going to have both, and then you have your two sets of options, two books to pull from, and you have like the stuff from Pathfinder, and then you just have classes that are objectively better, like, or just more interestingly designed, or feel like a step up, like an upgrade with what they're capable of. That always is the kind of that decision for many people, including me, to be fair, is that like, I could take this looks cool, or I could take this and it works better.
Well, yeah, and like I said, if crossover isn't the thought, no crossover, zero crossover, why is there an issue if the Starfinder classes are better? Because if there is a crossover, then yeah, of course, that's going to be a problem. But if you're not crossing over, then, you know, what's the issue?
See, that one I also understand is like, granted that is in a crossover game, but yeah, it's like if you have a set of characters, one is a wizard, one is the techromancer, and then one is just objectively better. That's tough because I know you gotta all fill out the different slots and like party role stuff because you don't want to step on somebody's character fantasy, and sometimes games do that mechanically.
Like, if there's crossover, then yeah, I think that there's just going to be some fundamental issues because it definitely does seem like that. But I don't think it's Paizo's intent for the games to necessarily have a ton of crossover. It's just the games are going to feel familiar for people who want to play one or the other. I haven't been listening to a lot of the live streams lately, so I don't know if that's even their intent currently.
The vibe seems to be like you can if you want to, or like we know people want to do this, so here's tools to do it, rather than like the intent is that these are both taking place in like the exact same big system. It's not a World of Darkness thing. Though yeah, Pathfinder and Starfinder, like Starfinder seems to be at least scaling wise, like it feels like it's a step higher with like, just some of the shit you can do, and you're gonna have to judge that based on any games where they're crossing. I don't imagine Paizo is going to actually address it though, because if it's not their intent, then it's not their intent. It's just a tool for people.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things.
The players.
This is kind of just one of those things. I'd like to be able to play a modern version of Pathfinder 2 classes. I think that would be fun. But if they aren't balanced for it, that is unfortunate. If they don't want to do that, sure, whatever, that's the choice. But maybe do push the idea you can play your Pathfinder 2. But maybe do push the idea you can play your Pathfinder 2 class or whatever. I mean, again, oh, do not. Okay. Did they push that? I don't know. I don't know if that's what they've been saying or not.
I can see them pushing that, and to be fair, I agree then, because like if Pathfinder and Starfinder, which it really at the start, if these games are set up like that, and it really is that they're different games, but they're super similar, so you can learn Starfinder really easily by playing Pathfinder 2e, and I feel that, to be honest. I want to play a modern day like just Pathfinder class. Like imagine a modern day like Thaumaturge or something. That'd be based, but it's just mathematically not going to hold as well in there when they're trying to sell it that it is. That's more feels bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, sure, right? If compatibility rules bring things up, that's good. If it's not, that's bad. That's kind of just the gambit that Pathfinder or Paizo has to play at this point in time. And like I do think I like the idea of a more modern version of Pathfinder 2, but that's just not the game that they designed, you know. The two are just in different systems. I mean, heck, Pathfinder 2 characters technically don't have the same skills that you would in Starfinder. And it'd be like, oh yeah, but you know, you can just add those skills. They're just skills, right? True, but the characters aren't intended for it, you know. They don't necessarily have any worked in interactions or anything.
Even if like the Starfinder stuff is just a little higher tier, it does sound like it could be a really fun kind of hard mode campaign, maybe. That is like you Pathfinder characters get abducted, and now you're in space dealing with space bullshit, and you're going full Pathfinder character progression, but you now have like the items and maybe other little goodies from Starfinder. So that sounds like a really fun game. I would hope that they have a thing in those compatibility rules of like, oh yeah, here's just juice up the Pathfinder stuff a little bit. That'd be very fun just to give people. I think it's what a lot of people do want as well.
Well, I mean, and so here's another angle of it, and this is kind of just like a big problem with the TTRPG like community in general, especially in Pathfinder. Does there have to be a balance between two classes of both can play this game the same, like the enemies you're fighting and everything? Like, if everything else they do equally well in, or at least they like, you can play the game still, it's just maybe not as optimal, is that necessarily bad? If your argument is, well, then why don't I just play the better thing? Sure, but it's a role-playing game. It's a game about telling a story and playing interesting characters. It's not necessarily like, you can play inoptimally and still have a really good time in tabletop.
Yeah, but it's more fun, at least if your character's mechanically good and interesting too.
Well, like, yeah, but they can be.
I just do both at the same time. I don't know.
They can both do what they're intending to do. Like, the thing is I'm not saying one plays terribly. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying,
no.
Is one missing that +1 bonus that another class is technically getting for the same thing? Is that much worse, honestly? Is that crippling of a thing? Probably not. Is your damage like 7 more damage per round, going to make that big of a difference? Like, unfortunately, this just plays on a lot of, like, I guess, nerd psychology of just, like, wanting to innately optimize, when the fun part about a TTRPG is that you're telling an interesting story and you can make up rules on the fly. Running Anima Beyond Fantasy taught me early on, a character can start out bad and end up broken just by good storytelling and the GM working with the player, So, like, it's something where
oh, that makes sense. I mean, if guns are a thing,
well, and like, that's the big thing in Starfinder is guns.
Yeah,
and
like I got fucking laser guns getting blasted. I'm a fighter with a broadsword from Pathfinder, like in Galarian. That just sounds like a fun hard mode game. Like that sounds cool if the scaling is going to be like different. Though it's just that thing of, if you're going to have any inclusion of it in a rule book, and like it's already noted that this could be a mechanical problem, like the jumping, I think having a little block, or even figuring out like, okay, how do these classes match up like in this game, and just giving like a loose over, like, all right, Pathfinder classes get this and this, Starfinder gets this and this, okay, go wild. Still leaving it to the people to like decide it firmly, because it's not their exact intent.
Yeah. Because it does seem pretty obvious that they're not designing Starfinder classes around Pathfinder 2e metas. So
I do like that. I like that they're going to be different things entirely.
Right.
But that's also is the part of me that's more fascinated by when they can like cross paths. Because I always like saying it. It's just like it's the ideas that I've always been like fascinated by. Is like, what if we were playing a game where a character, like a couple characters, were all from like different tabletop games interacting in one system.
Yeah, but you just run into the World of Darkness problem, where just the game's thieves and everything break down really, really quickly, and what the characters
that's why
can
I mean
do.
Like one shot is like, I just think it'd be very funny to have that situation where you have like a bunch of different characters from different game systems, and you're like randomly swapping through as the game goes on. Like, oh no, it's a warp in reality, and then you're a World of Darkness character interacting with someone in D&D, and you're just like,
right.
how do I dice roll? Like, that sounds really fun to figure out in the moment. Just as
sure.
like all of us is very experienced in tabletop.
Sure. But I think that's definitely like, that's a homebrew personal thing, rather than like, do the company have to do anything to like balance kind of thing. Like, I know your example's not implying that, but the core of the argument being made right now is like, how much does Paizo actually need to do to like bring Pathfinder characters up to snuff in the setting? Because like, should they have to essentially like errata everything in Pathfinder just to release Starfinder 2nd edition? That sounds like a lot of work.
I don't imagine that'd be something they should do, because I don't even want like Pathfinder or Starfinder classes to be designed with the other game in mind. But like, if it is going to be a point of Starfinder that they can cross over, if there is a little something to help the crossover, that feels like expected and should be done. So I'd hope that'd be done instead of like, you can cross it over, thumbs up, instead of like putting a little bit of the Paizo like finesse on it, which is they thought about the math.
I've been slowly remembering what they were kind of saying at the time, and they're like, the systems are going to be very similar, so if you want to, you could definitely bring your characters over from one to the other. Though I do think they did have a caveat, but it's like, but there will be some complications and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. I just hope either them or I could see a third party thing, maybe messing with some of the stuff when those complications are noticed.
Right. For sure.
Because I think it'd be a really fun tool to give people if they're trying to go for like an expansive kind of a small scale to galactic scale is what I'm thinking.
But I don't know. A lot of this is just predicated on the idea that a game can't be fun unless players are, or not can't be fun. A game is less fun if some options feel less optimized, not less capable, but less optimized, which is not necessarily an ideal I agree with when it comes to tabletop in general, especially because the whole point of a TTRPG game, these games, is telling stories and doing narratives. And as long as everything does the job, you know, it's like, it's very different than, you know, for instance, I can't even play the game because like the enemies just one-shot me or whatever. Yeah, that's a bad class. But if it's yeah, we play the game. Sure, it takes our team an extra round or two to beat a group of enemies, but that's not a bad thing. That's not necessarily inherently a negative, you know? So when your game is built like Pathfinder 2e, I think it's important. Why?
I mean, the game is built to like be more tactical, have more mechanical builds. I would want everything to be optimally like what it could be. So I want everything to be effective.
Yeah, but does that change the story or anything? Or are you only feeling bad because you're not playing optimally?
I can't out-story my character mechanically feeling disappointing.
Yeah, but why would you feel disappointing?
If the main bit I can think of it is looking over to like there's two marshals in the party, because of the like differences picked, where picking even narratively, you're just like, oh wow, that looks more fun and like it operates smoother and is more effective. And like I have my narrative choice, sure, but it's but like we all love it with Pathfinder, but there's a lot of sometimes feats where you're like, this is dog shit. Why would I take this?
Yeah.
This is cool, I mean, flavor wise, but this sucks.
I'm not saying like things are just like obviously bad. That's not what I'm necessarily implying. Here's a really good example that I think will make a lot of sense. You're playing core Pathfinder classes, for instance, right? You had a really, really good time because you enjoyed the mechanics of Wizard, you know, for instance. You really liked it. You played it. You had a good time with it or whatever. Then another class comes out and it's just Wizard, but a little bit better. Why are you now having less fun?
Because I'm looking over at the thing that looks more fun and more effective.
Yeah, right. And that's a very just like that's a thing that like is the problem, right? Is you're in no way that actually affected how you played that game, how you ran that character or anything like that. Nothing about the game's actual design and mechanics is making you feel bad. It's just there's now a better option and you're like, dang, you know, you're playing the game like a board game or like a combat game, you know, and not like valuing the story.
And I'm saying that I can do both at the exact same time. Like me wanting to optimize or even have like mechanical satisfaction won't stop me from like role playing this character and being very narrative. Like it's not the I'm not doing one worse because I'm thinking of the other.
It's just it's a thing that it's just like a psychology thing, right? Because I'm not even necessarily saying this mechanically feels better. It's just this is more optimal, as in like it does more damage, and like by a small amount. It's something that is just so non. It's literally like saying, but the damage numbers in this game are bigger than the damage numbers in this other game, so the smaller damage game is bad.
I mean, it's I guess it's a different thing from game to game because like two different games are gonna be different, but like it's the thing of I'm in this existing game. There is a new class, Wizard 2. We're continuing playing. Maybe I'm even seeing someone else pick up Wizard 2, and I'm like, man, that looks really fun. Like if I had the chance, I should have swapped to that or something.
Yeah, and I don't know. I disagree that that necessarily has to be the case. I'm not saying it's not the case for people to feel that way. Obviously, it is. But when you're playing a TTRPG, you know, the idea is you're not playing a board game. You're playing a TTRPG that is story based and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying build doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that if your enjoyment of a TTRPG is just based on the pure mechanical prowess of your class, especially compared to another class, then you're playing TTRPGs for the wrong reason.
And all I'm saying is that like I just don't view them as separate things because I can do both easily at the same time. And I'm also someone who makes a lot of my builds based off of narrative things. Like I pick based on like, oh, this character wouldn't take this option because that's not who they are. But I also am like, I'm going to keep this in line with making something that actually like works to the best extent that it could. And if it doesn't, I will adjust it throughout the game. And sometimes I just don't foresee it. I'm like, I can play optimally like this is a tactical like game and be role playing the entire time. I can just do both at once.
Well, yeah, I'm not implying that you can't role play and play tactically. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you can be playing somewhat optimally and have the same amount of fun.
I definitely could. If I had the choice, I'd pick the optimal option. Like within reason for me, but like it's just not gonna detract anything from each other.
Because I would very much say, and I think this is a real linchpin here. Do you only play meta builds?
No.
Then you're not playing that way anyway.
Yeah. I at least
plain and simple.
I am of that opinion of like when there's just a thing in a game, because like I'm thinking about it with Path of Exile, where like I personally do not like dealing with a like, man, this build idea, it's gonna be really cool in 50 levels and then it's gonna be effective. I can't deal with that. Or I look at a class sometimes that I'm like, man, I'm trying to do this with this class. And like it can work, but look at that class doing it objectively better. I will switch to that class. I will just play that one instead. I have a couple characters where I've done that.
Because like some of my favorite TTRPG experiences are playing in games like Deadlands, for instance, which have a very strong like advantage disadvantage system. And it was more fun to play with characters with more disadvantages or who had disadvantages to work around than it was to play characters who are just super optimally designed. And that's because it's the story, it's interesting, and it's the themes and all the stuff that you have to work around. Pathfinder 2E definitely doesn't have those same kind of like elements because you can't necessarily choose to gimp your character in the same kind of ways. But then it's just like, okay, so is Pathfinder 2E more of a board game than it is a TTRPG?
It at least has elements I really like engaging in, which is the like tactical, gamey elements.
I'm not saying it's not a fun game for sure. I'm just saying, Um, I'm just saying that if you're making those kind of choices, then it's like you're interacting with parts of the game or making decisions for your character that are not, they're in disharmony with like a narrative reason why you might do it. Like you said, even just now, not too long ago, that sometimes you would just make things based on what your character is doing, which is
I make it within reason. It's the two caveats: would character ever take this ability and use it, and is it actually good though?
Yeah. I mean,
I have found this so many times in Pathfinder. Like, oh man.
Yeah, and with Pathfinder, it's just like, for instance, a lot of people like to complain about Alchemist, and it's like Alchemist is a lot harder to do a lot of the same kind of things that some other classes kind of do, but the fun is you're dealing with those mechanics. So even though it's not optimally, having a character who has to work around those mechanics because you enjoy those mechanics are not decisions based on, is this an optimal class, because it's like, why play a alchemist who is a chirurgeon if you could play a cleric, if healing was your intent, right?
I find it very funny that is one of the list of reasons why I don't like Alchemist, actually. Because every idea I have from Alchemist is like, I can just do this in a more mechanically interesting way in a different class. Like my Poisoner Rogue that I made once, where I'm like, this came from an Alchemist Poisoner build, like Assassin build. And I was like, okay, this works in Alchemist, but this looks annoying to deal with when I can do this fun thing in Rogue.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that's talking on about like mechanic fidelity, which is not necessarily what's being the topic of the subject. It's optimization.
I feel like
same thing, your same mechanics, just one does better numbers, but like by a bit.
Yeah. It's just like Pathfinder is one that I'm gonna look at and be like, engaging with the builds and like the tactical stuff is part of the fun for it, because
Sure.
I would not approach optimization in the same way of like a Call of Cthulhu game or something. No, I'm gonna make someone who's fucked up, like disadvantages, have some flaws. That's fun. But Pathfinder is like, I like the aspects where we can roleplay and play very tactically.
Mm-hmm.
So optimizing out the character and having that dictate some of my choices within reason feels better in Pathfinder. It's like the sliding scale, I think, of some games, because I feel like making the same decisions in something like literally like Deadlands or Call of Cthulhu, you are breaking the theme of the game and like what the game is trying to get out of people playing it. And something like Pathfinder wants you to engage with like that mechanical element and make something. And even better, unlike a lot of older games that are trying to hit that same exact style, Pathfinder has guardrails where you have to try to make something dog shit.
Yeah.
Unlike
First
edition.
That's kind of my point, right? Is you can kind of just do most things in Pathfinder and not worry about it, because your character will generally work within the same framework, with maybe the exception of your numbers are not as high or whatever as someone else doing similar things. But like, you can still fight the monsters, you can still tell the story. And in the example of like the Alchemist, for instance, you have a very interesting character who works in a very unique way compared to any other class, because making your alchemical items, like, you're not limited to just making healing items. You can make bombs. You could play a bomber style chirurgeon character if you really want to, if you just prefer the idea of like having the ability to not infinitely, but to have the ability to always be able to throw like a healing bomb at your ally without necessarily using like extra resources, for instance. Like, is that optimized? No. Is there are probably better ways around it? Maybe, but maybe that's the story of your character. Maybe you like the things that chirurgeon does, narratively speaking. And I mean, what Oyman has been kind of saying here, where it's just like, would someone with a gun essentially fight better than someone with a chakram or kukri? Sure, but like, they can do some other things that they kind of like, but that's not necessarily optimal. You know what I mean? It's just you're playing a fantasy of a character in a very specific way. So it's because if we were using the, what was it? It was the wizard and the technomancer.
Yeah.
Like, narratively speaking, they get their power from very different ways and have very different types of narratives and stories that they would pursue. A wizard is a wizard and a technomancer is a technomancer. Like, maybe I don't want to play a character who's a technomancer, you know? Like, maybe I like playing a wizard. Is it wrong for me to choose to play a wizard when technomancer just does spells essentially a little bit better?
No, but if there was a little tool Paizo made that if there is a significant mechanical disparity for something they would be okay and have endorsed crossing over, if there is like a little rule text that's like, here's how you can bump stuff up, that'd be pretty cool. That's all I endorse. I endorse if that is a thing they're building into a game, and they notice an issue or the community finds an issue, I think it'd be a cool option for them to like have a broad stroke thing, like little fix for it. Though definitely not, let's make a Starfinder, Pathfinder, errata and go through every single class line by line. That is excessive when realistically, if there is a significant disparity like that, something broad strokes probably works fine.
And Phoenix, I mean, I'm just trying to work through the conversation here. So then what is the argument if that is not the argument? Because what you were initially saying was, why play a wizard when Technomancer is here? I'm not accusing you of anything. I am just trying to get to the center of the conversation. I don't know. It's interesting. I think this is all interesting design theory conversations, because I think like a lot of gut reactions can really easily be circumvented if people just thought about it a little bit more, or it's the approach that matters. Because almost every single time I see someone complaining on like a Pathfinder related thing, because Pathfinder is a very like, you know, a very rigorously designed system. They have their own personal stories of like, but you see here, I've done the things I'm kind of arguing against in my own games. I'm just talking about the idea or the theory behind it, you know, like they're arguing for something that they themselves don't even necessarily like participate in. And it's just an argument for the sake of an argument. In which case it's like, you're missing the point of like, obviously it's about what a player wants to do and what kind of things they want to do. Like, if Technomancer is a better wizard, right, and you're just playing to play the best spellcastery type character you can imagine, then, and it doesn't matter what your class is or what your theme or even what your character is, you're just approaching the game from a purely like board game mechanical standpoint. And that's fine, but that doesn't mean that that's not your approach. It doesn't matter if you can tell a story. Right. But like, and for Dev Phoenix here, like I'm talking about like, if that was the case, right? If Technomancer is just better wizard, right? Like, what makes that wrong? Or if that's not your argument, then what is the argument, I suppose? But it's just like, many players are like, I like to play optimally, but within the scope of the design for the character I'm trying to go for. Yeah, sure, I'm all for that. So then you're saying is you're not actually concerned that another class is better than the class that you're playing, as long as you get to play the style of character that you were trying to play, and it's best represented by that class. But
I do hope too, if like the point I'm making is a good representation of what you're saying, Dead Phoenix, because I at least think that the argument is if the option exists and there is a problem that is noticed, it would be cool if there was something there to help address it. Like if they're designing and adding stuff, be like, and they can cross over, thumbs up, and then it's like the math is just one is scaled higher than the other. That's just like, I don't know how it's gonna be. That's a loose example. If there is a broad strokes, here's a little juice to the math for Pathfinder stuff. That'd be kind of cool. Okay, yeah, I'm nailing it then.
Yeah, okay. So then the general idea is, if they want the game to have crossover, they should adjust the rules for it. Sure. Then, that's what they'll probably do, but it doesn't seem like that's their intent.
And if they don't do it, and there is a problem, shout out to third-party devs. If you can come up with a little something, that'd be fun. And actually kind of a sick book. I'm going to be real. I know I was actively saying, like, they shouldn't go line by line and update Pathfinder stuff to Starfinder, but I kind of want that. I'm not going to lie. I would buy that. I would buy a book that is essentially futurized version of fantasy classes set for Starfinder. That I would kill for that. That sounds hype. I'm getting myself more into it and against the argument I was exactly making. I am, because I was saying they shouldn't. That's a lot of work. I want it now. I will pay for it. I think I'm picturing like fighter and witch and fucking like cool space armor with like a ray gun. That sounds really cool. Get on that designer out there who's been sleeper cell activated.
I mean, I think what the devs were initially talking about when they said that you could was your characters will mechanically work if you so choose.
I also wouldn't be surprised if, like, depending when in the dev cycle that happened, if someone said that, and then, like, as the game became more and more developed, they were like, okay, it's not. Let's ease off on that marketing messaging. Like, I honestly, I feel the same way. Dead Phoenix, I'm exactly with that. Like, if it comes down to it, I would rather play in the system I'm playing in something more mechanically satisfying, which could also dictate me playing a Pathfinder class in a, like, Starfinder comes to Pathfinder game. Like, that, it goes the exact same way. But if they do, I would love a little boost in, like, making sure it works smoothly.
Sure.
I do want to play that. That sounds really sick, is, like, some part of the game cast away in a different setting, in a kind of slightly different system. That sounds really fun.
Sure, I mean,
if it's like a 10-sessioner. That sounds like a fun story to tell.
At this point, though, we're just talking about essentially just like a third party or like an additional splat book or something that is just like for that purpose, rather than like should they not do something, like, should Paizo have to redesign all their classes? No, I don't think so.
I don't think we've ever said that exactly, but it was
sure, whatever.
Yeah, we're meaning like broad stroke stuff.
Like,
I agree with that.
But should people want that? Sure. And if third party wants to do that, sure. I think that's fine too. I just don't think that the Pathfinder 2e classes and the Starfinder 2e classes should be in any way linked to like design principle. I think they should work for their intended systems the way they should.
And I'm happy that is the intention, the very stated intention from the Starfinder team.
Yeah.
I love Pathfinder, but I want Starfinder to be a different game.
And like when they were initially talking about it, more was just like, you could do it, but the intent isn't to the same degree or to be balanced. It's just mechanically speaking, your characters work the same way. You hit enemies the same way. You use skills the same way. Your abilities and action economy work the same way. But you're a dude with like plate armor and a sword versus people with plasma shooting guns.
Until now, I'm putting a bounty out for a third-party dev to go line by line every class and subclass for Pathfinder and make it fully workable in Starfinder. Sure. I will pay you $10.
And I'm totally behind that idea.
So sick.
Don't get the argument earlier incorrectly. It's more of just like trying to find what is the problem innately. Like what is the issue, and like so we can understand, so I can
Yeah.
understand.
Because my position is purely, if you're going to even state it in the rulebook, I'm super big into giving as many player tools and GM tools as possible to make
Yeah,
it
but I
not
don't
a,
think
like,
they're even
I
gonna
don't know
do
if you
that.
figure it out. If they do, I honestly don't super anticipate them to even mention it in the core book. If it is a thing that that they will even do and like state and make as a selling point, they should do something. Because I don't like the idea of flopping something on the GM's lap and being like, all right, figure it out, bud. Have fun.
I mean, yeah, I
But
think
if
that's
they don't
just,
state it, then whatever.
yeah, I think that's just a lot. I think that a lot of that idea is just implying a lot on Piza's behalf that hasn't been said or done. It's just musings of the idea of it.
Just accept it right. It's right at the beginning when they were saying it. But if they went farther, because I only know that they have said like, yeah, you could. It might have some issues.
Yeah.
If it's in like the core book, I want tools.
Sure.
More tools. Always more tools.
If that was their intent, but I just don't think it is. And musing otherwise is just all for the sake of theory, I suppose. What if, you know? So it's just one of those things where, I mean, like, we did touch on some interesting conversations though of like, is playing inoptimally or like anything bad in a TTRPG, and I feel like it's just a lot of knee-jerk reaction to the concept for people more so than the actual practice, because like I think everyone here, and I if I implied in any way, I did not mean to, everyone here is here for telling fun tabletop stories, you know, role playing, getting into character, all that kind of stuff. I can't imagine anyone who sits in my streams for this long would be interested in anything but something like that.
There is a like grognard mid-maxer power gamer that's just now going, hey, wait a minute.
That's not what we've been doing for the years that TableTalk has been a thing.
What have I been doing this whole time?
Because you know, it's funny because actually what makes me think of that was there were some comments on the No Nats video from people who are big supporters of me that had such a weird vibe that very much did not match like how I approach tabletop at all. Let's see if I can even find them, because it's interesting, and I do not mind openly disavowing this kind of rhetoric, especially behind what I'm doing. And it doesn't look like there's been that many more comments since. Let's see here. I control F, bad luck.
Sometimes it works for comment sections, but they sometimes load piecemeal, so it's hard.
Nope, that one person's just being very supportive. Our supportive one. Where is that one even? What the fuck? There was a really, really funny one. What was it?
I did find two possible candidates.
There were two I was thinking of.
Are you thinking of the one that shits on No Nats immediately, like in the comment section? And then there's one of they don't know your political opinions.
Yeah, so that was the one I was thinking of.
I laughed when I read that. I'll be real. I saw that when the video was posted.
I did too, but I was also mortified because that Century is a fan of mine. And that's like the vibe they're spreading. And I'm like, oh, ew. No, the Battle Gamer is by far the best Pathfinder content for me. Thank you. Why?
Also, like, I will say, we've been pretty open on live streams about, like, the values we hold.
True.
Like, we are open about that.
But why? I want a good overview of something and I want to deep dive into it. He does this. However, by far, when I listen to him, is this. Do you know about his political and social stances? I don't. That is huge for me. There are a few Pathfinder content creators providers out there who I unfortunately do know, and I very well might be on the opposite side of most of those issues from them. I might be disgusted that you say you ran a game for kids and then also defend groomers on your side business. So with him, we have a guy who loves the game, seems normal, and keeps politics and social issues out of this content. It's refreshing. And then there's the other one.
I think just reading between the lines there is a very long and complicated way of saying he's not supportive of LGBTQ shit.
It really does.
Which, ew. I don't like you. If you find this live stream, I don't like you.
Yeah, I'll second that. That is definitely not my vibe, for sure. And then there was another one. It was just like talking about like getting super granular with the rules or something like that. I can't remember. Something along those lines.
I do have one that is long and rambly. I couldn't read it.
Okay, sure.
It is one where I don't like it because I think it's shitty to like just insult somebody in their own comment section like this.
Yeah.
Like the blind leading the blind,
oh,
except
yes, that
Padlock
one.
Gamer, whose videos are 100 times better than Nonats. I mean, I like about 60% of Nonats content, and by that, I mean I enjoy 60% of every Nonat video. There's legit 40% of every Nonat video that is Nonat entertaining himself and making his audience eye roll. Are you mathematically breaking down videos like this? I don't need the asides, snide remarks, mess ups that should have been on the editing room floor. Cut every Nonat video down to 60% of its content and I can get on with my day or the next video. Please, I beg you, in writing news articles, what the fuck? Which the internet age no longer follows because internet writers are not professionally trained, called the inverted pyramid style. The point is that you get the most important information up front. Apparently, internet also reward how long you stay on a page or video, but this is anti to how humans operate. If they have to wade through 40% of nonsense sprinkled into the good stuff, they'll eventually look elsewhere for the good stuff. Because unless they are really a big fan of your BS, they don't have time for that stuff. What are you talking about, dog? I'm gonna be so real. What the fuck is this stream of consciousness?
It's
That's another one I read like literally 2 weeks ago. I thought it was also very funny.
I did too. I mean, again though, but they're my fans, so it's like, oh, ew.
Everyone here in the chat, I know that y'all are normal. Just be cool ambassadors, which is just keeping yourself, I guess.
Yeah, it's a.
Base Dead Phoenix. It is a good theme, I'll be honest.
It's yeah, I don't know. But like the thing is like I guess maybe it's just because I've been doing a lot of Pathfinder 2e content, because I do genuinely like Pathfinder 2e. I like what it offers. I like how it does combat, and I've been able to have some good stories in it for sure. But honestly, after looking at Cosmere and designing the 333, I'm definitely coming to terms with the idea that like Pathfinder, it's not like the best TTRPG for me personally. It's not a game that necessarily plays with narrative. It's a really good game that has narrative elements tied to it, you know? There's not a lot of choices that necessarily affect how your character's story goes, their narrative, all that kind of stuff, other than just what you can imply loosely from the text of some of the abilities. But like the game's overall core design is mostly around the like the mechanical combat stuff, or sometimes some mechanical stuff that can happen outside of the combat. But even those are kind of like very loosely designed. Like they don't have a social combat system. They just don't.
No, I honestly, like, the way I see it, even as good and as based as like 333 is gonna be, I will be forever sad if we never touch Pathfinder again. If we full replace it, I'll be sad because I like Pathfinder. And like
Yeah.
I see it the same way uh as like I've seen other games where I'm like there are those things with Pathfinder that I agree cuz like I like the narrative systems in these other games. I would love to see to hit those exact narrative mechanics in Pathfinder. I don't think it's super hard to do so. If anything, I can see just a bumping up narratively of taking some form of like inspiration from the plot dice system and modifying it, and also I guess loosening on some of the rules of like, well, technically you can't do it like this, it has to be done like this, but whatever. Which I guess is just like, yeah, the game could be a little narratively better if we just did it ourselves and ignored some rules. Which I don't think is the worst thing of a tabletop game. That is why they say like, by the way, have fun, ignore things you don't think is fun. But like that is the fix, and I'd love a game with both. I want a game with like Cosmere's narrative and Pathfinder's mechanics. I think that would kill for me.
Sure. I mean, for me personally, I mean, like, it's more like I like Pathfinder. I've been making a channel essentially based on Pathfinder for the last few years, and it's definitely not the intent for the 333 to just be the thing for the channel moving forward. This is a variety tabletop channel at the end of the day, and I don't think there can be a perfect game. I think there can be your best game, but I don't think even then, just because you have a game you really like doesn't mean you can't try or play other games in other systems.
And it's really quick if you don't embody the idea of that, where you fall down the D&D mindset, where it is, well, no, I need this one game to be everything possible.
Yeah.
It's like, no, even like 333, it's like this is the vibe, this is the style. But sometimes you wanna hit a different style of story, so you're going to play a different tabletop game. Like that's always how it is. It's how it should be.
Yeah, sure.
We're hopping games. We don't have like one rule sandbox.
Yeah, I mean, like the 333 is okay. What if I did with Anima, but instead now the game just has way more structure, and we don't have to worry about a player just suddenly like being way more powerful than everyone else and skewing how combat is balanced, or, you know, spells that kind of just do a very vague thing that can be really like misused if you just put a little thought into it. Like, it's a game of, here's a fascinating setting, here's a very interesting take on a high modern occult kind of investigation / thriller style of game, which honestly, like, the closest thing right now is Call of Cthulhu. And while I think Call of Cthulhu is very interesting, I just want a game that gives me more systems, more things to actually like interact and play with, and not just be like, here's a dice check, do a dice check, and then you do the thing vaguely kind of thing. A thing that actually provides more density to like conversations, like social combats, or to, you know, like, when you play my game, I want you to be like, oh yeah, this feels like I'm actually doing the thing in the game. Like, it feels like I'm actually going through it. And to make that as clean and as like unobtrusive as a system as possible, I think is something that I've been just really craving. But sometimes Pathfinder 2 is just going to be like, okay, I really want to play like a very fun tactical style game, you know, or I see this new class in Pathfinder, I really want to play around with it. I love Alchemist. I think Alchemist is really, really cool, mechanically speaking. And I've been having a lot of fun with it in the game that my fiance is currently running. And I don't want to necessarily stop playing in that game. So, you know, it's more of just like a, I'm looking for a game that has more narrative meat, that has something that makes a game a game that leads players to telling more interesting stories than forcing players to invent interesting stories around good games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
like Pathfinder 2e, really, really great game, but honestly, much of the narrative weight mostly just comes from what you make up yourself. And like, I've played like Deadlands and I played other TTRPGs where that very much isn't the case, and the game very much helps you tell very interesting stories by having some more narratively implying things happening to you. The Cosmere RPG is a really good example of, oh, my character's goal in the game actually has a mechanic around it that I can actually lean on, and the GM doesn't have to just come up with everything around that. That's really cool. I really like that. I wish more games did stuff like that, hey, my character has a specialization in a particular skill. Yeah, fuck yeah, just let me succeed those checks as long as they're not a particularly difficult action, Like, why make me roll for something that my character should be good at just to have a chance of not doing the thing that I'm designed to do? Doesn't World of Darkness have narrow mechanics? It does. It does. It's not particularly, again, narratively crunchy, but it does.
It like the systems in place for a lot of them. I mean, Vampire has like combat. It's very simple. It has more social stuff, but a lot of the other games are in that bubble of like, they have these mechanics sometimes because combat is a last resort option in the rule intention. Hunter the Reckoning is one I immediately think of like that, where it is designed of like combat wise, it's not super satisfying because it's not trying to be, and it's stated that it's not going to be, because you really shouldn't get into combat, like a long combat. That means you fuck something up and you're going to die. So like, yeah, it depends for a lot of games. Everything kind of does it very differently. But yeah, like I feel like I'm gonna hit both itches that I sometimes want, where sometimes I want like Pathfinder's very tactical. Like, I want to play a game that hits a little bit that same CRPG itch.
Sure.
And then other times I'm like, I just kind of want to describe shit without the book telling me no. Like, I have both complete urges. So it sounds like I'm just going to be eating good with all the cakes in front of me.
Yeah, I mean, that's my intent, right? To run good games, so.
Yeah.
No, it's just like, the 333, though, I feel like, in a very mechanical sense, is just a really good game. I'm excited to share with all of you. And if you like occult investigation kind of stuff, if you're into games kind of like Blades in the Dark, even though that's not a investigation style of game, really, more of a heist-based game, or if you like Free League's Vaesen, or even a little bit of Monster of the Week, although this game is a lot more crunchy than Monster of the Week, like, that is this style of game. And this is a game that also like plays with dimensionality concepts and things that get more mind-breaky the deeper into the game you go. So, it's a very cerebral kind of game. It's also a game designed for experienced tabletop players. I'm not making a game that's super accessible to people who are new to tabletop. I don't think every game needs to be designed that way, personally. So, if you think that you're a very narratively like practiced person and you're looking for a game that can really give you like the same narrative weight you like in narrative heavy games but with a lot more crunch to it, I think you'll like the 333. And I think, I think it's okay. There's never been a game to date in my entire life that I will play forever and always, no matter how good it is. I love Pathfinder 2nd Edition. We've played a lot of Pathfinder 2nd Edition over the years. So, there's nothing wrong with wanting to have a little something else. That's why I've been excited for the Cosmere RPG, and that's what I've been even more excited about for the 333. And I'm making the game, so I get to make shit up as we go, and I think it's going to be a really good time. But that's going to be the end of the stream. But before we go, hey, Alex, you want to leave us off with anything?
Yeah. If you already aren't, I make videos on my own YouTube channel. It's Glue Boy. It's linked in Cam's YouTube. On Monday, I'm going to be releasing a big old video on Mage the Ascension, just an overview of the world, how it works, the factions, and it is a wild time. So stay tuned for that. Or if you just want Trench Crusade, Warhammer, Vampire the Masquerade, go swing by, watch some videos.
Yeah. Also, you've been having some banger videos lately, and you have a video that's getting ever closer to 100K views. Isn't that wild?
Oh shit, am I?
It's like at 88K at the moment.
Oh, good lord.
Right.
Yeah, Trench Crusade, it hits. It keeps pulling people over. I hope they release more stuff because I don't want to make like speculator lore videos or out of date lore stuff. So like, release a new faction game.
Yeah, do more stuff so I can make more content.
Exactly.
For me, you know, like I said, we're getting to a point where things are starting to balance out. When I was making videos before, everything was like a little bit easier, but then she kind of just grew up to another stage of being a baby, and so it's more like she just has feelings about things now rather than just being like a pure like I'm hungry, I'm tired kind of thing. So it's definitely a lot being a new parent, but we're getting through it, and hopefully soon, sometime at the 3 to 4 month rank, her colic should be going away and she should be sleeping a lot easier and for a lot longer periods of time. So that should make things easier for me. But until then, like I'll give you all an example of this morning. So I took her from my fiance at 10, and then she went to sleep at like 3 a.m. So from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. I was just trying to, you know, get her to sleep a little bit. And then I got to sleep until 6 a.m. And then I had to get up again and work with her until about 9 a.m. So so I got 3 hours of sleep, essentially. And then eventually Suzanne was up and here. But, like, moving forward, she's not going to be here. And so I'm just going to have to try to sleep in the scant hours that she's trying to sleep consistently. And so it's just like not a lot of sleep. The only amount of time I'm going to get is when my fiance gets home. And that's only until she needs to go to bed so she can go to work in the next day. So I get a choice of like, do I sleep a little bit more so I don't go insane? Or do I try to do some work in the meantime? And like, even, and my videos are just long. That was the whole point of like the No Natch review. I just make a very in-depth videos. And they take a lot of time. They take a lot of time to go through and edit, remove some of the empty space, remove, you know, maybe add some imagery or images in there. So it's like, it's not something I can necessarily do easily or consistently. And that's not including the stress of raising a baby. So I don't know. But stuff like this, Table Talk, super easy. Doing a stream, you know, my fiance takes her and for 4 hours we get to play a game. But like, I can't just do that every day of the week. So it is what it is. Hopefully things get back to normal soon. Hopefully I start making videos soon. And yeah, and check out the 333. It's going to be a good time. But with that, we'll go ahead and say goodnight.
Good night.
Night.